Greetings, friends. It's me, Wayman29. This is a video going out to Ramblin' Kid. He had a question about Peter and being the rock of the church. Ramblin', I did not give you that 1 star. Sorry, I just got around to seeing your video. Awesome question. And whenever you have a doctrinal question, you should always ask yourself a few questions, and things will become pretty plain as to what is going on as far as ideas of doctrine. What I'm getting at is you should look at what point in history was the claim made concerning Peter being the rock of the church, who made it, and the political, religious ideas floating around at the time will tell a lot about how the doctrine actually came to be. And it's very fascinating. My guess is that what you mentioned, the Pope and their connection to this, Peter was to connect to a New Testament apostle, which is done a lot, and to enforce authority and to streamline the belief system of Orthodox, because you had Christianities, early Christianities, not early Christianity. And so the romanticized version of how things came about is usually far different from the historical version. We'll look at some of that. So here I'm going to read the Hebrew names version text. This for information on the Hebrew names, just so the Hebrew names version of the World English Bible uses more traditional Hebrew names and terminology instead of the Greek or English terminology. So we'll be using this. Well, we can look at the KJV too and see how the two compare. Then what I want to do is we'll see the political and theological fights that were going on even today. It still goes on, and some of these will be pretty hilarious to see people scrapping over the idea. And so we'll look at a messianic New Testament writing, and we'll see the notes to that. And then we'll look at some early church fathers. What did they have to say about it? And then we'll look at some commentaries. We'll look at some evangelical commentaries. So this video might be kind of long, but we'll buzz right through it, and it's pretty easy to see. So I'm gonna I got my big eSword program here, and has all the info on it, so it'll go pretty quick. So the verse we're concerning with is Matthew 16:18. Also, check and see how names and metaphors and word puns are used, especially in the Old Testament. It's also brought here to the New Testament in this writer. Previous verses, Jesus asks, "Who do people say that I am?" And they say, "Oh, they think you're Eliyahu. They think you're Jonathan or Elijah in English." And and then he says, "But who do you say I am?" And Peter says, "You are the Messiah, or the Christ." And Jesus answers him and says, "Blessed are you." So here, Jesus is giving Peter a word pun name because it goes with the theme. Previously in the text, Peter says he's the Messiah, and Jesus says, well, obviously it's a revelation because no man has told you this, so good for you, and since you got it, bam, So here in 16:18 is the verse we're concerned with. I also tell you that you're a Kepha. So you are correct in saying that one was a capital letter. This is correct. It's the noun. It was the name. And on this rock, I will build my assembly, or church, or congregation, And the gates of Sheol, or hell, this is English Sheol, which is very different from Greek ideas of Hades, will not prevail against it. And also here it's pretty interesting. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth will have been bound in heaven, and whatever you release on earth will have been released in heaven. This phrase also shows up in the Old Testament, I believe, and also in Matthew 18. So let's look at the Israeli authorized version of this, so you can see kind of. Well, first we'll go to the commentaries. We'll go to the some of the early church fathers. Here's the which one do I want to use? We'll scroll down here. I've seen a good one by Jerome. Here's the Augustine. But let none suppose that Peter received that name here. He received it at no other time than where John relates that it was said to him, "Thou shalt be called Cephas," which is interpreted Peter. There's the reference there. And pursuing the metaphor of the rock, it is rightly said to him as follows, "And upon this rock I will build my church." That is, on this faith and confession I will build my church, wherein showing that many should believe that Peter had confessed in raising his understanding and making him his shepherd. Here's from Augustine. I have said in a certain place of the Apostle Peter that it was on him as on a rock that the church was built, but I know that since that I have often explained these words of the Lord, "Thou art Peter, and on this rock I will build my church," as meaning upon him whom Peter had confessed in the words, "Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God," and so that Peter, taking his name from this rock, would represent the church which is built upon this rock, for it is not said to him, "Thou art the rock," but "Thou art Peter," but the rock was Christ. 1 Corinthians. So here Augustine, it's kind of funny, he changes his mind. You can see the theology being worked out. Whom, because Simeon thus confessed, as the whole church confesses him, he was named Peter. Let the reader choose whether these two opinions seems to him be more probable. That's great. So now we'll check out the Israeli authorized version, see what the Messianics have to say about it. So here's the verse. Here's the note. Note, Roman Catholics typically misuse this verse to justify their position that Peter was the first pope of the church. However, Scripture clearly teaches that this cannot be. Peter was the founder of the first Messianic Jewish congregation, as seen in the book of Acts. Clearly, that congregation was completely Jewish, where before they were Messianic, and the Jews continued keeping Torah. There is absolutely no biblical justification for thinking that Peter was the founder of a new religion. Also see notes, Matthew 16:19, John 6:48, and Corinthians and Acts and Timothy. So that's pretty interesting there. So now we'll check out some of these. Where did I see it? This commentary here. Here it is. This is the Evidence Bible note. Jesus is not saying that Peter is the rock upon which he will build his church. That would contradict 1 Corinthians 3:11. Makes it clear that Jesus is the only foundation of the rock. Is the revelation that he is the Christ, the Son of the living God. This is an evangelical commentary. Give me 100 preachers who feel nothing but sin and desire. So let's see what the College Press New Testament. I believe this is another evangelical commentary. The next two verses we constitute some of the most difficult and certainly some of the most controversial of all of Scripture. The two extremes need to be avoided. On one hand, the Roman Catholicism has read into the verses an elaborate doctrinal of papal succession and infallibility based upon the supposed investiture of Peter with exclusive authority and status. Protestants have responded by downplaying Peter's importance and pivotal role by these texts. Peter is either viewed as the typical disciple or merely as a representative of all other disciples. However, it is difficult to ignore the intensely personal focus of verses 18-19. After Peter makes his affirmation concerning Jesus, Jesus in turn addresses Peter personally. Note singular pronouns. Making a play upon his name, as we said, Petros. Peter's name in Greek is probably derived from the Aramaic Kepha, meaning rock or Craig. Since Jesus probably originally responded to Peter in Aramaic, the wordplay as suggested in verse 17 becomes readily apparent. So here they're pretty fair. They're pretty fair. So here they talk about the theological issues, Protestant overreaction to the Roman Catholic claim, and also by the Messianics, as we have seen. So, I guess, rambling, it just depends on what church you go to. But, well, let's see what we can find here on the Ante-Nicene fathers. Here it is, Matthew 16:18, Tertullian, the prescription against heretics, which is not permitted the people to understand, was anything withheld from knowledge of Peter, who is called the rock on which the church should be built. By Tertullian, they also had this argument, if because the Lord has said to Peter, upon this rock, my church. So, yes, it's very interesting indeed. And so the debate continues. Whatever theological slant you are, not even the church fathers could figure it out. And there has been fighting back and forth between groups for years. And personally, I think that the church made that claim in order to establish authority and connect their name to Peter and to establish the Orthodox, quote-unquote Orthodox tradition. And Orthodox isn't necessarily always the truth. It ends up being the beliefs or theology that just won out over the many. So there you have it, rambling. Sorry to ramble on so much here. But excellent question. Thanks a lot. And take care, friends. And remember, if everybody's thinking alike, then somebody isn't thinking.